Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Wait a Minute! It's the Ludic Society, not the Unfictional Soundscape. I can't do his intro anyway, but that's all right. I don't have to because, believe it or not, here is in just a moment, if I can just hit the right button.
Russian.
Here is the crew already live. And the man himself is here, the actual Unfictional Soundscape, the only one and only. He is a whole soundscape of Unfiction, as it turns out. But before we get to that,
just all soundscape.
Every soundscape is this one guy.
Every single one.
He's like the Foley artist of Unfiction, so he's just sitting there with like.
I may have to make you louder, by the way, Authorman.
That's fine. Do you want me to turn up my gain, or do you think
Yeah, you can turn your gain up on your end.
Right. How's that?
That's much better. Okay, so before we get into this, I want to quickly remind everyone that the Ludic Society and Serious Play in general is brought to you in partnership with the Center for 21st Century Studies at UWM. They're still doing their loneliness stuff. I think they've also started doing like talks on it, so you can check out that stuff on their Twitter, which I said I was going to link and I didn't do it. Oh man, we'll have to link that next time. Also, we are brought to you in partnership with the Vehemence Discord server. You can go and join up with the Ship of the Vehemence if you'd like to through this QR code and get a sense for where you can play some sweet inclusive ARGs. Well, the ARGs are inclusive and
I thought you were going to launch into YMCA. I'm not going to say.
Yeah?
I'm going to say you're like, you can.
You can do what you feel, young man. I think that is true, actually, of the Vehemence. They really are the YMCA. Yeah. And here we are. Here with Authorman of the Unfictional Soundscape, and of course us as well. So I'll let Authorman do a little intro for himself this time.
Wow. Hi. My name is Authorman. I am. Oh God, I'm blanking. I am a creator, a content creator in the general internet space. The most niche thing that I work with is Unfiction. But I do find myself dipping. Oh golly, I almost tipped my coffee over. I do find myself dipping my little toesies into other pieces of media whenever it suits me. I don't tend to tie myself down with projects. I just do whatever feels fun. And that's basically all there is to say on the matter.
You may I find when I let people do their own intros, they undersell themselves real hard. You have a fantastic backlog of really great podcasts. And let me go ahead and grab a link to your Anchor FM, or maybe I'll just grab the link off of Spotify, actually. But one of your things.
That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really incredible work, and you like every episode slaps. Every episode goes and does a great job of interrogating something I think in our field is not getting talked about, which is the role of music and natural sound and other things. So it's good. It's a really incisive addition to the critiquing space that I think we really need.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Appreciate that a lot.
I am joined by two other lovely co-hosts of mine, Morgan and David, or not David, Diego. I flipped your names because they start with D.
Whoa!
Look at that!
Man.
Wow! Diego, you are now David. So
I can't believe you just did that.
I can't believe it.
Just leaves.
Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Sure.
As David or?
Hi, I'm David. I'm a PhD student here at UWM.
No, okay. My name is Diego. I'm an undergraduate student here at UWM in the School of Industrial Engineering. I'm the noobiest of noobs at the ARG, so I'm just here to have fun.
He's also the newest member / collaborator of Serious Play Snaps.
Yes, we did that today. Diego is the official member of Serious Play. And the first, did you say the first undergraduate? Was that emphasized?
I didn't say that.
I'm saying it. You're the first undergraduate member of Serious Play, and we're super fucking proud of you.
I'm telling David, no, tromboner. I am Morgan Forbush. I am an anthropology master's student, and yeah.
Yeah, and I am Ren. I'm a master's student in English. I do the ARG thing, slowly more archival than anything else, but here we are. So we're so lucky to have you on, Authorman. I've been a big fan to be honest, for months, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I really have been like trying to get myself back into podcasts, and the Unfictional Soundscape is what did it for me. I've been out of listening to podcasts since Thack stopped making the Thack Pods to cast, actually.
Oh my god, that is such a long time ago. Good lord.
Yeah, it's a deep cut. So you've done it, and like this program has somewhat of a history with your work in that you recommended I'm Scared, and that we should, at the top of the I'm Scared video it says, oh, stop and go play I'm Scared, and I said, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna go play that on stream. And now we're playing all of the My Madness Works games whenever there's time for it, so
damn straight
they're all great. Like Firework is also fantastic, by the way, for just to pump My Madness Works here for a second. But we are lucky here today to have a list of 10 questions for you about the work you do, and we're very excited to have you on to answer them. As is with all of our interviews, chat is happy to toss questions at us, and we will prioritize chat questions as much as we can. So that'll come into it. And if you want to, if we're ever doing an interview and you want to send us Q&A stuff beforehand, there are always Google Forms and Vehemence where we take question submissions from the audience. So that's there as well. I try to put these in the best order that I can. Although maybe very quickly before we get into this, just for our viewers who might not be aware, you should just describe what the Unfictional Soundscape is and kind of what you do on it.
Sure, yeah. So the Unfictional Soundscape is a podcast wherein I discuss the intricacies of music and sound, the usage of music and sound design in Unfiction, whether that be original music or original or music from another place. Whenever people just decide to use somebody else's song, I want to talk about that. It was trying to think if there's any other way to describe it. I don't think I need to define Unfiction. I'm so used to defining Unfiction for people whenever I talk about the Unfictional Soundscape, just because I'm in a space where people are interested in the work that I do in college, but they don't really, like, nobody knows what Unfiction is. Although I often find that they know what an Unfiction project is, or they know of an Unfiction project.
So what is your definition of Unfiction?
My definition of Unfiction is a form of fictional storytelling that utilizes varying degrees of multimedia delivery, audience interaction and immersion, which is like the standard definition that we've applied to it. And I think that's a fantastic definition because it basically covers everything. And I also think that the word unfiction in general is just a wonderful word for the things that we do here, because there's nothing to argue with when it comes to the naming convention of it, even though I think that arguing about naming conventions is silly to an extent, especially in a field that's only been alive for, I don't know, like less than 20 years. Like in any like official capacity anyway, like a community coming together for this sort of thing. It's super duper young, which explains why people don't know anything about it, and I don't expect anybody to know anything about Unfiction when I tell them about my work. So this is a very long-winded way of saying that I'm used to having to explain the thing to people whenever I talk about the podcast in general.
I get that. Like it's at the top of every paper I write, whether I want it to be or not. Anytime we're talking, because I've got one person in my department has been like, "Yeah, I know what an ARG is. You don't need to explain it to me." It's like that's one faculty member. So which is the faculty member Stuart Malthorpe that I'm doing my fucking thesis with. But
oh my god, I would crap myself if somebody said that to me. Like, oh, you don't need to explain what an ARG is to me. If I was in like a public setting and I was explaining it to somebody and they said, "Oh yeah, I know what that is," I would like ascend. I would be so happy. Oh my god, finally somebody who gets it. Good lord.
It's nice to get past that first that hill.
Totally.
Like,
oh yeah,
fuck.
so I don't have to fucking relitigate the whole history here, right? Like I was on my school's radio station a few weeks ago, and it was quite quick. My friend Mary, she had called me and said, "Hey, do you want to be on my show?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And I came down and we just talked about. She asked me what my favorite word was, and I said that it was. I've said one of my favorite words was unfiction, and I just spent the entire time like talking about unfiction, the history of it, and all that stuff, and them asking me questions, and that was fun and all, but like there's so much history to it that having to go through every single little thing is such a it's such a time consuming endeavor. You have to have been there for like at least a little bit, or have like at least a day's worth of experience with it so that we can get past the simple stuff. And I understand that might be scary for new people, and I don't want it to be anybody who's listening that doesn't know anything about Unfiction. I don't want that to be a gate for you to stop you from getting into it. You should get into it if you feel the need to. It is such a wonderful field with so many different projects that are you're not going to get them anywhere else, as the bottom line.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that.
I like Carnahan. Carnahan? Yeah. He says, or they say, it's any media that has its own version of believing in professional wrestling for the sake of the story.
Thank you, Jeff.
I'm like, that's
I agree.
I agree.
There's so much. What's really funny about that too?
The question
There's
is,
a
who's
substantial amount of There's a substantial amount of research, and I want to get to your stuff, so I don't want to talk about this. But there's a hole to go down with the connection between soap operas to professional wrestling to Unfiction.
Yeah,
it's canon now.
It's the pipeline. It's the Unfiction pipeline. As soon as you get into soap operas, you're fucked. You're locked in. You're not gonna. You can't escape it.
Yeah.
First you watch The Sopranos, and then you watch WrestleMania, and then.
And then it's Everyman Hybrid. It's Marble Hornets. It's Hi, I'm Mary. You're screwed now. You're not getting out of it, man.
Hey, there is some wrestling in Everyman Hybrid. So
oh yeah,
the rate, yeah,
just a little bit.
Also, MJ Anderson says that it's no surprise that Henry Jenkins' orbit contains more than a few wrestling fans / academics. So, yes, that's the Henry Jenkins. We all can't escape Jenkins. So questions for you. I want to start with just this. So what's the origin for the idea of the unfictional soundscape, and the origin of the name as well? What drew you to discussing, as you put it in the title at least, soundscapes, and how do you specifically think of soundscapes as interacting with games or unfiction per se?
So, the name comes from uh, well, the podcast itself was originally a school project that I had done, um,
Hmm.
which is quite funny. It was a project for my sound design 2 class, and my professor was asking us to do a podcast on something that we all enjoyed. And the first thing that I thought of when he asked us to do that was obviously do something on unfiction. The question is, what do I do uh, that's in the field of unfiction that's not something that's been done before? One of the best pieces of advice that I've ever gotten when it comes to doing something is from my friend Aiden, and he was saying that if you're gonna do like let's just talk about podcasts. If you're gonna do a podcast, you should try to make it as niche as physically possible. If you can focus it like a hypodermic needle onto something specific, then it's not only going to rake in people because it's something that's like new and hasn't been talked about before, but also it's easier for you to talk about. Because if you do a podcast that's just generally on unfiction, well, there's a billion different things you can talk about there. Like, and while that is good and it is sort of a niche topic, you can go even deeper into it. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there was somebody who did a video series that was just breaking down every effect, every new kind of effect that they see in a piece of unfiction. I think that would be really cool if somebody did that. There's a free idea for you. You don't have to pay me for it. um
But you can collect
and
royalties.
I'll see how I feel about that. But anyway, the specifically with music and sound design, I have had a lengthy experience with music in my life, and I thought that, well, I know a lot about that. One of my degrees is actually in music, so I thought, well, okay, so I'm already I'm already studying this. I could kill two birds with one stone if I focus on music and sound design in unfiction, because they do kind of go hand in hand with each other. Music and sound design, you might as well just lump them both in. And there are so many different things you can talk about with that haven't really been talked about before, which is another thing that I had noticed and why I was so compelled to do the podcast specifically on that, is that nobody has talked about the use of music and sound design and unfiction, at least to an extensive degree. And I found that to be kind of a downer. One of the main things that I've been taught in my time at college is in the media field is that video is nothing without sound. You're not going to get the same feeling that you get with a movie or a TV show or a video game if you don't have good sound design or good music or good anything. Like, just the effect of a quality voice actor being put into a role in like a piece of unfiction levitates that to, or elevates that, not levitates, elevates that to like insane heights. Like Kane Pixels, this is a great example. Kane Pixels recently did a video called Autopsy Report for the Backrooms Unfiction project, and the voice acting on the scientists that they had come in, dude, it is like legitimately actually convincing, like super duper
I'm shocked.
convincing. It sounds like somebody was actually given a body that was like that stopped aging, stopped decaying, and was sustained by hay bacillus. It's crazy. And if it was somebody that was like less than quality as in a voice acting position, then I don't think it would have been nearly as impactful. And that's kind of the point, right? Like that, yeah, those images are cool and all, but they're elevated by that sound design, by that music that's in that episode. Like, oh my god, the music in that episode is so memorable and unique. I love it. Oh my god, I love that. I love that series. Anyway, now soundscapes. I forgot the rest of the question.
That's okay. That's how these things go. We do them in tiers to try and like, it's a tactic to try and get people to start going off on tangents, and then we start going off on tangents. I think like mainly the vibe that I had, because I think I wrote the original version of this, was like, what do you define as a soundscape? Like, how does a soundscape differ from other descriptors for what's going on in a piece of media, you feel?
I think soundscapes define. Well, first of all, it's catchy. That's
It's
the first
catchy.
thing. Is like the unfictional soundscape. I think that was.
That's
Yeah. No. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna say soundscape is a really nice, like, crisp academic term. Like, yes, the soundscape.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, actually, it's funny. I was thinking about the classes that I was taking at the time when I was making the project, and one of the classes I was taking was soundscapes in nature or something along those lines. That is one of the best classes I've ever taken. Oh my god, she was so wonderful. She would talk about she would talk about the sort of um, animals making noises and the science behind that, and the science behind the noises that people make, and how there's like noise pollution, and we did a project that was talking about there are sticks that are around campus that have like QR codes on them. This was our final project, and we needed to focus on something that was like a soundscape in that particular area on campus. And the one that I had done was on the football field on our campus, and I thought that was really really interesting. Even though I'm not a sports person at all, I thought that was super fun to actually analyze, like the way that somebody talks whenever they're doing a sports show, or like like during a football game specifically, like how much breath the person has to get, like the kind of the vocal type that they have, whether that's like baritone or tenor or whatever, the timbre of their voice, um, all really really interesting stuff. Um, but soundscapes in relation to Unfiction, and why I think that was an important distinction, is we whenever you're doing a project, you need to understand, at least if just a project in general, yeah. Whenever you're doing a project that involves audio, you need to think of the space that you're creating and the aesthetic that you're trying to go for, the vibe, to put it in slang terms. Whatever you're trying to establish here. I think a perfect example of this is To the Ark's last video. I can't remember the name of it. I think that is like a perfect example of like a soundscape in a piece of Unfiction, because it is not only establishing the tone of the video, it's also establishing the area that it's taking place in. It's in the forest. This is probably the last thing that this character has ever recorded, and we're hearing a bird in the distance in sort of a morning call. Not morning as in the time of day, as in mourning, as in weeping the loss of something. And in the distance, you can hear the river going by very calmly. You can hear the trees creaking. You can hear this nature setting that's very calm, as opposed to the chaos that we're all about to experience in the series. We're experiencing the last breath before the storm, and it's this character who is so broken to this point. They've done nothing but want for the death of this one guy for so many years, and now it's coming to a head, and this is the last thing that they can do before they go. And I think that was so powerful on the part of the That guys for that in particular. I think that's one of the best parts of Marble Hornets, hands down. And I think, like I was saying, that is a perfect example of a soundscape to me. It's somebody who it's establishing the tone, the mood, it's establishing everything. It is a scape. It is a landscape of sound that you're hit with. It's powerful. So that's partially why I chose that term.
Yeah. Um, it. I guess I kind of have a question
Please.
for. Do you think that like vast majority of players kind of grasp the degree of which soundscapes really inform their understanding of the medium, or do you kind of hyper focus on it? Because I know it's like you're looking kind of for it. Do you think a lot
Yeah.
of players actually? I don't want to say like downplay the coolness of soundscapes; they're really cool. But like, do you think a lot of the vast majority of players kind of grasp or hear the soundscape, or do they just kind of feel it?
No, they mostly feel it, I would say.
Hmm.
I mean, partially because, like I was saying before, barely anybody has talked about this stuff,
Hmm.
right? We don't
Yeah.
but the thing about sound is that we're not really supposed to grasp it. Good sound design goes under the radar. If you uh, uh, and it's not fair from my perspective because I am sitting there and I'm looking for it, but like for a player, if they notice, oh hey, that's sound design, or oh hey, that's music, or oh hey, the blah blah blah, what like this means this, then or this was they created this sound with this, then that means that
Hmm.
the sound design probably wasn't thought out very well, or it's not doing its job. It should go under the player's radar, the audience's radar. If you're listening to a movie and you're watching rain fall and you think to yourself, "Oh, hey, that's not rainfall. That's bacon sizzling in a pan." The sound that I'm hearing right now, then that means that it's not very good sound design. It's
Yeah.
you're able to automatically, and that's probably the technique that they use. They probably did bacon sizzling in a pan because it sounds like rain, or at least it sounds like what you think rain sounds like.
Mhm.
Um, and I think I absolutely think that players don't pay enough attention to it, but also I don't think there should have been a point where they were supposed to be paying attention. At least from an analysis perspective, I think they should be paying more attention to it. If they're playing a game and they're trying to figure something out, or if they're analyzing this from like a story perspective, or they're trying to give it an appreciation from a story perspective, then yes, they absolutely should be paying attention to the sound design. How many years went by with Everyman Hybrid before somebody actually sat down and was like, "Hey, the sound design in this is pretty cool," or "Oh, hey, the video in this is pretty," or like the effect that they use for this is pretty cool, right? Like until Nick came along, people really weren't doing that, and they were analyzing it as if it was real, quote unquote. And we could sit here and talk about that all day. I'm not gonna, unless that's part of the questions. I didn't look at them
I mean, if you
beforehand.
want to go into the state of unfiction analysis, I am beyond happy to do it. But
Well, let me
I'm trying to
finish this
focus the
tangent.
interview on the interviewee. You know.
Totally, I appreciate that. The but my point is that if somebody is trying to figure something out, because a lot of these projects are puzzles, and or there's a puzzle that's involved, there's a mystery element that's involved. If they want to understand it better, they probably should be paying attention to the sound design. A perfect example of this um, was Pictures of Gwen. That was out a while ago. One of the things that I focused on in the project was that there was the website that players had gone to was utilizing Gwen's theme, the main chords for Gwen's theme. And I talked ad nauseum about what that means for the people who made this website, what that means for Gwen, like that's like really important information that you're getting from this. And
Mhm.
if you're not asking the question of where is this sound coming from, um, why is it here? What is its meaning? What does it mean for this character in particular, or these characters in particular? Then you're not being a very good player. Sorry.
Okay.
That's just my opinion.
Something kind of follow-up ish to that. Because I was thinking about like film scores because I really I will watch a film because it's scored by a musician that I like
Fuck yeah.
I'm
because
just
I love film scores.
Dune, 100% Dune.
Dune,
I'm not gonna. It was like
Yeah,
without the
baby,
without
Dune.
the soundtrack, but do
the
not
one
go
on
and
Church
listen
Point
to the
Never.
soundtrack before
Ooh.
you see Dune, because it's impossible to separate the Dune music from the Dune the movie. I
So
like Dune.
I was kind of like thinking how do you position diegetic sound in ARGs, right? Like this is it's like a very weird like how do you come to understand that, right? Because that's kind of how we come to understand our own positionality to the game as well.
Totally. Um, well, first of all, I love fucking diegetic sound in unfiction projects. It makes me so happy to see it. Um, because it's understanding uh it's one of the things that this field has like an advantage to, that we can produce sound that is unnatural, quote unquote, i.e. like music, like there's something that you wouldn't hear normally in a piece, and makes it diegetic. Like normally with a film score you wouldn't think of it as something that is like diegetic or something that the characters hear. I mean, it is something that can be done. And oh my God, when it's done right, it's so awesome. Amazing Spider-Man 2, fantastic example of this. Whenever Electro is fighting Spider-Man and they're in Times Square and he's in the music, you can hear him talking to himself and the thoughts that are going through his head as he's experiencing this anxiety, this panic, as he's being attacked by the one person that he's looked up to this entire time, the one person that he thought was his friend, and all of these people looking at him and screaming and crying and yelling. It is, oh my God, that scene is so good. But like that, there is so much work that has to go into that. There's a lot of work that has to go in with it. And if it wasn't done correctly, then it wouldn't have been very good. But they managed to do it. Now, see, in contrast, with Unfiction, we really don't have to try very hard, quote unquote, to get that kind of diegetic sound. Um, for example, so found footage in particular, right? Like whenever you're hearing music in found footage, then you are automatically understanding that this isn't something that the characters are hearing in the moment while you're watching this. This is something that one of the characters later who had gotten a hold of the footage had put on top of it, which adds a whole meta layer to understanding the story and trying to come to terms with like what exactly is going on. There was a character that there is something, there was something that happened where it was out of these characters' hands, these possibly reliable or unreliable narrators' hands, that was given to somebody who is absolutely an unreliable narrator that was putting something on top of footage, on top of what you're watching now, and doctored it intentionally, which means that there are things in this footage that you automatically cannot trust. There are things that had gone through this that had made this thing that you're watching right now something that it originally was not. And it has to be up to the story and up to you as the player to start to question, is this malicious intent? Is this to enhance what we're watching right now? Is this a litany of different things? So when it comes to diegetic sound design and that's just one example, by the way. There's like a billion different
Mhm.
examples you can give, right? Because there's so many different ways you can take it. We're in a field where multimedia delivery and immersion are parts of the equation. Something that, sorry, I hit my microphone. A question, things that are not part of any other media platform. Excuse me. You know, you're not going to ask questions like this in a TV show unless they do found footage, like have a found footage element to them. You're not going to ask questions like that when it comes to movies. Like when you're watching Free Guy, you're not sitting there asking yourself, okay, did somebody take this footage and add music over it? Well, of course they did. It's a freaking movie. Yeah, they did that. And but there's like there's nothing deeper to examine with that, which isn't a bad thing necessarily. It's not bad that we're not having this meta layer discussion with movies and TV shows and stuff. And it's not to say that it's impossible for them to have that meta layer discussion. But the thing that I like about Unfiction is that it is inherent to the field itself. It is something that we're always kind of going to have to be asking, is how many hands is this project passing through, and can these hands be trusted?
Yeah, my immediate thought when you're talking about specifically soundtracks, right, is well, I mean, it's hard not to think about Everyman Hybrid, which I will, say to my co-host, I don't know if you've had the joy of experiencing Everyman Hybrid. That maybe we'll do that at a later date. But the specific part that comes to mind is the use of Jailbreak by AWOL Nation in the driving montage, because it's happening late in the series. You're not expecting anybody else to be sifting footage that Vinny is, because Vinny's the only one left, and yet still we get this like long driving montage with almost 90% of Jailbreak overlaid on it, and it's like, well, how the fuck did that happen? you know and it's still like, I don't know that I have a good answer to that. I don't know if I'm supposed to understand it as cinematic or not, but what I'll say is that question is one of the lingering things that keeps me hooked on Everyman Hybrid,
Totally.
So
in that way of like kind of creating like narrative questions, is you talked about when you're, oh no, had a thing when you're talking about like leitmotifs and I believe pictures of Gwen, you said that it was
Mhm.
hard to do Unfiction, but you didn't really elaborate. Like, why? Why is it hard to do an Unfiction?
Well, there are so many factors that you have to consider. I
Mhm.
mean, so Unfiction is a field that is decidedly homegrown,
Mhm.
for the most part. Obviously, there are some pieces that are not homegrown and were done in a studio setting
Mhm.
or were done with like cast and crew. But for the most part, a lot of the projects that are in this field, and especially some of the more popular ones, were done by just a couple people that decided that they wanted to do something, or one person who decided they wanted to do something fun. Uh, and that is part of the beauty of it. But there comes an issue with that where people sort of launch into it without considering the logistics of what they're going to be getting into. Obviously, studio settings already have that stuff figured out. At least I would hope they have that stuff figured out. But we've seen the effects of people not really taking that stuff into consideration beforehand. The West Records, not really understanding what he's supposed to do with this. What is he supposed to? And while that project was great with the things that it was doing, it didn't end up going anywhere. And the guy has come on to Reddit every year annually to say, hey, the West Records is coming back. And then he disappears into the ether for
Oh
another year and then comes
no.
back and says it over and over and over again, which is, if that's his hustle, that's fine. But it's not, it, it's indicative of the problem that he's experiencing,
Yeah.
where he doesn't know what to do with it, and because he didn't plan it out. And there are a lot of series that don't have everything planned out that did great in the
Mhm.
end or did eventually finish. But the series that really end up doing well and the series that end up sticking around for an extensive period of time and get talked about are the ones that had things planned beginning to end and
Yeah.
were also homegrown and decided they just wanted to do something fun.
Mhm.
Hi, Mary Mary being a perfect example. Kay has talked about it a lot, where she had an out, this doesn't need to be super duper in depth. You don't need to have every single little thing planned. I mean, it would help if you did, but you don't have to. You can go with
Mhm.
the flow, and you probably should go with the flow, especially with Unfiction, where audience interaction is like such a heavy, and that is a very, very, very unpredictable factor. Um, if you want to if you want your series to be healthy and you want it to finish, then planning everything out or planning a good chunk of the things out beforehand helps a lot. And like I was saying before, Kay, she had a beginning and an end planned, which is really, in my opinion, the main thing that you kind of need to have is the beginning and the end. You know how it starts, you know how it ends, and the rest that's in the middle can be X, Y, and Z thing. Um, and if it's not too out of this world, then it can absolutely be done. Unless it is too out of this world and you're a god, then yeah, you can do whatever the hell you want.
Okay. So it's much more like a planning. It's much more the genre of creator that gets into Unfiction rather than the genre itself that holds back like certain soundscapes.
Yes,
Okay.
I think another thing is that it is hard to picture the things that you are looking to do with it.
Mhm.
Because there are a lot of complications with
Yeah.
Unfiction. Are you just looking to do a web series? If so, that still counts as Unfiction. That's fine. But
Mhm.
like, are you wanting audience interaction? Are you wanting a separate website? Are you wanting like several different platforms for your thing to be on at once? Are you looking
Mhm.
to add like and then you know when it comes to like the singular creator or even just like a handful of creators, you're having to consider all of the different parts of of a project, of a media project that you need to take into consideration. Do you want art for this? Do you want music for this? Do you want sound design for this? I mean, you're going to want all of that probably at some point while you're doing this project, especially with what we've seen before. Do you want video effects? Do you want audio? Like in working in the media field, there is like a skill floor that you need to like achieve if you want to get good products. Like if you want to accurately convey what you're trying to get across, then you probably should know a DAW, and you should probably know uh, a video editing software as much as you possibly can. Because if you don't, then your skill floor, the your skill level is actively holding you back. Um, and you need to and you can grow with your project. That's happened so many times, but it's still growing with your project. You still need to learn to get better while you're doing it, and that can be a killer for a lot of people. And especially when you're doing this stuff by yourself,
Mhm.
that's scary, man. Like everything is pretty much riding on you with this project. I can't even imagine how many creators have stopped just because they didn't have any help with it, and they were not recognizing that like the workload that was involved with doing a media project, with doing a story, is way more than you could possibly intend from the get-go
Yeah.
if you don't know what's going on.
Hmm.
And of course, this is a sliding scale. If you're just doing a podcast that's that's Unfiction, and you're just sitting there talking for a while, yeah, you need to plan out your story and everything, and yes, you should probably know your DAW, your software, in and out, and you probably should have a good microphone, and you should probably, which is still a lot of stuff. You need to have like a good studio, you need to have like a good headphones, you need to know how to mix audio correctly to get the effect that you want. Even just with that, just with the one thing that you're working in, the one media field that you're working in that is just audio, there's so many different things you need to consider just with that. And we're not even talking about like the advertisements, the art, the planning for the story. Like there are so many facets to it that with the homegrown, homebrew sort of standard that we have here with a lot of these projects, it can be daunting, which is why I was specific in my saying that it's hard. It is hard to do these things by yourself. It is hard, or even just with a handful of people. Like this is a story that you're trying to make. This is your baby. You're trying to give this to people in the
Hmm.
world, and you want it to be as good as you possibly can make it. I mean, if
Yeah.
you want that, hopefully you want that when you're putting it out into the
Hopefully.
world. Hopefully. And if you aren't operating at full capacity, there's a potential that the product that you're putting out could be less than desirable.
Yeah, and in our field specifically, it like it was, who was it that I tried to explain this to? I think it was my advisor actually. I was like, did I ever tell you that like I didn't know anything about Twitch until I started doing stuff for Serious Play, which was like a month later they made me the platform director. And he was like, what the fuck? And I was like, yeah, well, when you do ARGs, you study them or analyze them or make them, you have to be ready to learn new platforms at an insane rate compared to other people, because you don't have an option. If a game is using PGP encryption, you're gonna have to now understand how PGP encryption works. I'm looking at you, fucking Five Lights. But it's not just like, it's crazy to me, and maybe I don't know how you feel about this, but it is absolutely insane to me that solo projects happen in our space at all, given the amount of literacies you have to make a solo transmedia project. But the other thing that's absolutely nuts to me as well is that like, not only do you have that bubble going on, and it's like, oh my god, how do these things get made? You also have like a player base that has to learn how to navigate all of that, and that's like, again, wild that much. You need that much literacy to get off the ground, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
You need to have
And
the literacy of like teaching literacy.
yeah, you need to know pedagogy before you get into it. Which is
Imagine someone would be like, here's this course on the pedagogy of Facebook. Please use it to start my trailhead.
But
This
that's
is
my
the
point, man,
trailhead
right?
to my ARG. It's a literary paper about the pedagogy of Facebook. This is a terrible trailhead. Please, no trailheads in dense analytical text. I'll die.
I really want. Can we have a trailhead in my favorite title for any academic work? It's just like called "Fuck Off Robots." It was about Lego Star Wars of all things. I loved it. It was a published peer-reviewed paper.
Like, so we got Fuck Off Robots, we got Working Like a Homosexual, which is also a great real peer-reviewed paper title.
Excuse me?
Yeah, it's great. It's one of the best books about, or books. Is it a book or a paper? I can't remember. Maybe Diego knows, because it is about labor. You are a labor person.
This is literally, I'm gonna read this now.
Oh, you haven't heard
Oh,
about
boy.
Working Like a Homosexual?
No.
Yeah, it's
Sorry,
a
we're
book
off
by
topic.
Mark Tinkcom. It's called Working Like a Homosexual: Camp, Capital, and Cinema, and it's like one of the best works of analysis.
I love
Oh,
the,
it's for
like-
it's for theater gays.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I don't. I'm kidding. Roasting theater gays in the chat.
We
I'm
are off.
sorry
We are
to all
officially off
theater gays.
subject.
I'm so sorry. Lin-Manuel Miranda, I'm sorry.
Oh.
But yeah, no,
Okay.
it's an astounding amount of literacy and labor, and one person is behind some of these projects. It's like when we were talking about Kane Pixel stuff earlier. How the hell? I understand the guy's 16 years old and he's making this
Yeah,
stuff.
he's 16. So that's an example of a god in the field. And there's really nothing. I mean, okay, to be fair, that guy has like had years of experience with the stuff that he's working in, which is kind of what I'm saying is that like before he even started this project, he had like a knowledge base that was like unrivaled in what he was trying to do. And the level of detail that he is able to achieve with the things that he has and the age that he's at is like is unbelievable. I don't even know how he does half of this shit sometimes, let alone be able to make it into a series. Like he has to have like a like he has like a clear idea of what he's going to be doing. He's 16 years old. Another perfect example of this is well Alex Keister is an example of that, but I was thinking of Alex Kansas, right? Like this dude is able to create this series with the with the skill that he has. And it is like insane the shit he's able to do with this. Now, obviously, he has help every so often, but that is like crazy levels of commitment that this guy has to get this series out the door. And it's all homebrew, which I think is um kind of like a herald for the kind of projects that we're going to be seeing in the future now. You know, it's not so much people are getting into the field that have no idea what they're doing. They have a pre-established skill set now, and they're using that pre-established skill set to tell the story that they're telling. It may just be the first project that they're actually doing on their own that's in the unfiction field, which is fine and great, and I love it, and I hope that we see more of that, please, for the love of God, because it diversifies the field extensively. So I'm happy that we have young, bright folks coming in that are really shaking things up like that. Makes me happy.
So we have to get back kind of to the core question list that we have. I do want to toss out.
Putting it
Huh?
on the tracks.
Yeah,
Pick it
we're
up.
going. We're picking it up.
Back on the tracks.
I don't know what you can say about this because I don't know where your background is on this, but I wanted to toss the question out. I think this one is actually from Diego specifically, but I might get my questions wrong. When it comes to traditional soundtracks or music licensure, do you know how that works for like these kind of large media stuff? I know for some of them they don't bother with licensing; they just deal with getting hit with the demonetization. But like, does the relationship to traditional soundtracks, lifting music from other places and putting it into your series, change when you're dealing with Unfiction or ARGs?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, because we're not operating with we're not expected to be operating with larger sort of projects or larger like we're not doing really large projects is what I'm trying to say. Like if Markiplier was to say use like copyrighted music in his videos, then there would probably be like an issue, especially because he monetizes his content, right? We don't really do that. If we're using a song from something and we're putting it into our series, then there's a good chance that like we're not actually getting money off of it. And if we're getting money off of it, it's like from an external source like Patreon or Kickstarter, etc.
Yeah.
And even then, like we are working in a field where creativity is like at its maximum and people just make their own original music most of the time. But sometimes when they don't and they just want some copyrighted music, it really doesn't matter. Like Alex Bale was using copyrighted music, I think, for the Happy Meat Farms part of his Unfiction project. It's fine. It's not monetizing it, as far as I know. Um, it's copyrighted, but it's credited in the description, and it's fine. So the licensure isn't. There's not going to be a problem with anybody coming and knocking on your door unless they're like really super bitter. But you know, YouTube is rampant with that. If this was like a like huge quotation marks around this, a real platform with people with experience, then you would have like this legal shit figured out like way in advance. And Sony isn't going to come knocking on your door to kill you. But this is YouTube, where creativity and freedom is rampant. And so is freedom to strike people's videos that are actually not representative of the company that are are being offended in this case.
UMG's gonna come in and claim your ARG video, but they're not gonna
Mhm.
take it down. They want the money.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of where my question was kind of, it's like it was twofold, right? Because Lord Huron, right? Why can't I think of the name? The Long Lost album, right? That's
Mhm.
under Capitol Records, right?
Yeah.
How do, like, I was kind of thinking about, how does that institution of the record label, how does that affect the way in which the rest of the project then is handled? Is it then marketing, right? Like, how do record labels in a way kind of influence these kinds of ARGs?
Um, I think, well, it certainly gives them a bigger budget,
Right.
and a larger team to work with, and all that jazz. Uh, it does limit people who would like to use that music for something else. Part of the reason why I've been doing covers for the Lord Huron series is that for the end credits, I don't really want to use their like actual music for it. Even though I'm not getting paid a damn cent for these videos, I still don't want the possibility of a bot coming in and knocking me in the testicles for using a piece of music that was copyrighted by a super corporation. Um, Even though that wouldn't happen in the real world, again, because it's parody, it's a cover, it's being used for educational purposes and blah 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 blah, all the things that are involved with copyright. There is a potential for the people to be put under the creators of this music to be put under strict guidelines dependent upon which company they're working for. That is really all stuff that's figured out beforehand, though. If you're working with a company like this, then you're gonna have to you will have any of the legal stuff already figured out. So anything that you're planning to do with that music is already cleared by them, and they're not no algorithmic machine is gonna come and kick you in the ass later. Now, in contrast, us using that music, there is a potential for us to be kicked in the ass despite us not making any money off of it. Actually, um, my background with, and to answer a prior question, my background with copyright is that I took a class in copyright law
Mm.
one semester.
Oh,
So
what?
a class in copyright law, specifically with like media
Taking it
projects.
down, with taking down copyright.
Yeah,
Ending copyright law.
well, no, with
Let's take down Disney.
I'll
Free
fight Disney right now.
stockroach.
Good luck with that. Mm.
Let's get a Coke that's developed with Jeff Bezos.
Jeff Bezos.
Jeff Bezos, yes.
Yeah, free stockroach. That's the copyright creed, right?
Copyright class, okay.
Copyright law is
Yeah.
funky. It is very funky.
Yeah, it's a little weird. Especially since it's in civil court. It's not something that you really do in the federal. Well, you don't deal with it on the federal level. It's all civil. And civil court is interesting. There was one hypothetical that my professor had proposed to us, where it was, well, actually, it wasn't a hypothetical. It was an actual situation wherein it was I'll try not to relitigate the entire thing. There was a father who went into a store to get some food. He left his son in the car. There is a couple that's sitting on a bench in front of the car. The child that's in the back gets out of his seat and ignites the car, and then makes it go forward. It crushes the couple that's in the bench. After it goes over a potted concrete plant, a woman walks outside and she gets a heart attack. One of the pieces from the plant launches into a window. The glass shard dislodges from the window and stabs a woman in the heart while she's working at the cash register, and she dies as well. And and this
That's
is a
Unfiction.
no, it's not. That's real.
That's a Rube
It's
Goldberg death.
it's
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
yeah, it's really fucked up, right?
Yeah.
And
That's Final Destination right there.
yeah, and the question that our professor
Oh.
had posited to us is, who's at fault for this death? Like who gets charged? And it turns out that it's absolutely nobody that's involved with the situation. It is in fact the person who left the potted plant that the car had crashed into there. That person was served. Now, listen, that person was served or was told that those do not meet code and you have to get rid of them. And that person was told that a year ago.
They have
And they've left them there.
liability.
They have liability because they left them there, and then therefore, and it doesn't matter whether or not the car would have hit those people if the potted plants were there. The car hit the potted plant, it flipped over and killed those people. Therefore, liability. So that person was charged. The person who had put those there was charged with it, and I can't remember the rest of it. But the point is that all of this is to say that copyright and civil court is really, really weird, and there are like
Yeah.
there's like a set of rules that you need to follow. If you ever have the opportunity to take a copyright class like that, I would highly recommend it. Even just something with like civil court, so that you can better understand the place that you're in and your rights whenever somebody presents you with something that
Yeah.
is copyright infringement, quote
Just
unquote.
like my vague, I was the head of of a student theater, so we showed movies every week,
Mhm.
and just the whiff of licensing movies versus public and for public screening versus private screening, and can we do this
Mhm.
without the rights or not? Whereas enough for me to go, yeah, I don't even want to mess with this. We're just gonna leave it because movie rights are fairly simple.
Yeah.
Because they don't have there's no radio licensing in movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
What happens for radio licensing with music? I'm just gonna put my hands up and go. I don't know. I know that
Yeah.
I have a public screen, so I need rights for it, no
That's
matter
when
how many people are there.
Quite so.
That's when you just say, everyone go watch the movie and we'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
That's a
Like-
public
Book.
screening.
Book club it.
Yeah.
Anything over 13, a baker's dozen, so 13 people, you need movie rights for, whether it's a
That's
private screening
wild.
or not. If it's a public screening, doesn't matter how many people you have. You could have one person sitting in a movie theater. You need rights for it because it's a public
Yeah.
screen.
Wow.
So,
I learned something new today.
there's a problem that I, this is the archive problem, which is there's no MLA definition for ARGs. So fuck your citations. You're going to have
Yeah.
30 of them. And this is
Yeah.
every paper I
Here's
write.
this tweet. Here's this other tweet. Here's
Yes.
a Discord message.
It's awful. I imagine with like copyright, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to push this too far because I don't want to like push beyond your knowledge, but I do have to ask, do you think like that in the long-term projects like this are just going to be treated as like franchises, or do you think that the law is actually going to have to catch up to the medium?
It depends on the project. I think there is a potential for some of these things to become actual franchises. Actually, I know for a fact that some of them are going to become potential franchises. But it's a matter of the discussion that happens during this. I wouldn't necessarily worry about the process for the audience when that becomes a franchise, because you're going to be getting the content regardless, and you're not going to get castrated if you cite a tweet from the Twitter, or you talk about a video from the YouTube that is now part of like this copyrighted such and such, because that is technically still in the public domain, and there's nothing that they can really do to kick you in the ass for that. So I don't think it's something to be worried about, but I think it is something that is going to happen soon, where there are going to be projects that are turned into franchises, quote unquote, and will continue. I mean, even like Nick, for example, right? Like he's on a TV station now, and that means that like the videos that are now on that TV station are under like a certain set of copyright. But
Mhm.
if you re-upload his videos, then there isn't technically something that he can do about that. I mean, you shouldn't do that, but there isn't. But I mean, that you can strike the videos down and say like, well, hey, that's my work and blah blah blah. But it's in the public domain. It's on YouTube, so it's not like something that you could take to court. I don't think.
And this is kind of a question to both Ren and Authorman. Do you think the institutionalized, like maybe trademarking or even copywriting, or like following through on securing your trademark, so striking videos and saying, "Hey, that's my character. You can't do that with that." Do you think that'll change how Unfiction works? Because Unfiction is very like homegrown, but as it becomes more institutionalized, do you think it'll kind of morph into something that it didn't start as, like move away from the homegrown origins? And do you think that's a bad thing, I guess?
Well, it's so there's a period in Unfiction and in especially ARGs, and I want to make it clear I do ARGs mainly. So as far as the full history of Unfiction, I'm not apprised. But there's a period in ARGs where most of the shit that was getting made was big corporations making games. So yeah, I mean we already had a period like that, and the problem is that those ARGs did not do super well as commercial products, and as a result, companies stopped producing them unless they were marketing campaigns, and the marketing campaign is already trademarked and copywritten out the ass. So I'm not sure that we will see that much of a change because those subsections already exist. I think the trouble is going to be for those fringe creators who are building content that gets big enough that they want to start engaging in these institutional apparatuses, and then they're going to be like, fuck, how do I trademark my stuff? How do I get my stuff copyrighted? And I don't have an answer for that because I'm not a fucking lawyer.
I feel like they might also like alienate their audiences in a way, because it's like, hey, this is a homegrown project that it's got big enough that I want to trademark it, and then the fan base might be like, well, you've betrayed us.
Yeah.
You've turned to the man.
Sold out. You're a sellout.
Yeah, I agree that there is a potential for that to happen. And the people that don't like that, that's fine. If you don't like that thing, then that's your stupid ass decision to not like it.
Yeah, fair.
So
I know that like, oh sorry.
no, go
this is
ahead,
gonna be
please,
Anne's other
please,
thing.
go ahead.
Like the creator Tomska has become fairly known for protecting his songs in particular. So if you play Muffin Time on one of your videos, Tomska will strike it down because he's programmed it that way. Like he wants those to go away because he wants people to go to his video. And everyone's like,
Yeah.
wait, he's doing that? I'm like, yeah, he's been a creator for like 10 years. Of course he knows how to make copyright system work for him. Like, go off. It's his it's his product. Oh.
Eve Ghost makes a really
Oh,
good point in the comments as well, and it's
definitely.
super dependent on nation too. Like, this is where everybody here is USA based, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, we all have one. We're not talking about international law. Man, maybe one of these days we should get an interview with somebody and just press them on like international law and how it relates to transmedia projects. Be kind of fun.
Yeah. See if you can
Oh, I
get
like
Eve to come in.
Eve,
That'd be
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, that'd be really cool,
Yeah.
actually.
And you can
Yeah.
also like talk about
Maritime law.
like did Article 13 exist, and is it actually like enforced how people really didn't want it to be enforced? That was like the copyright law for memes in the EU.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone remember this?
Yeah, you remember that.
I don't know if it actually went through and if it's actually enforced the way that people were afraid that it would be enforced by.
I hope
So
it
like
didn't.
that'd be
The last time I really cared about the government trying to do something with like an up and coming media was when the Library of Congress thought they were going to save every tweet. And then I was like, yeah, I don't think the government's ever going to know what to do, so I'm not going to trust their opinion on anything.
Jesus Christ. Every tweet, huh?
Yeah. Well.
So what's great to know, you can be rest assured that the Library of Congress has archived and has saved every single one of former President Trump's tweets, because they are required by law to do that.
And well, on that lovely note, let's take our little 10-minute break, or let's say maybe 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes. We'll be back. It'll be on. Let's put it on stream tile and I'll mute stuff. So we'll be right back. Get some water. Take a piss. Yeah.
Yahoo.
Go piss, girl.
Baller.
you're stuck with it now.
What is going on in the chat right now?
We are back.
Pigeon milk. That's what's
Pigeon
going
milk.
on in
That's
the
what's
chat
going on in
right
the
now.
chat. Yeah.
That was probably the worst thing to just say at the beginning of break.
Welcome
Pigeon
back,
milk.
everyone.
Hope you're all refreshed.
With some pigeon milk. Hi, Hartzell.
In this cup, pure pigeon milk. I didn't pasteurize this shit. The USDA's coming right after me. If you guys hear a knock on that
Oh.
door, it's the USDA SWAT team.
Open the door.
Is it fair trade? Oh, Hartzell, that's a hard. Is it cruelty free? Fair trade?
I don't think you can get pigeon milk in a way that's cruelty free. I'm sorry.
You just walk around the streets of New York hunting for pigeons.
I think it's cruelty like added actually. It is free range though. You're right.
We'll have to ask Ash Black.
PETA, please no, you can't report us to Twitch. I can't take that.
Is pigeon milk organic? Well, it has carbon in it, so it is organic. That's my smartass answer to any time someone asks me if it's organic. Thank you.
We made a science joke, boo.
That's the here. We had a productive break, everyone.
This is great. Diego, you're next. You have to start the next question because the next question is the rabbit hole that I knew we were going to get into from the start of composing the questions. You have
Sorry,
to
let me
do
pull
it.
it up quick. I'm pulling it up.
You don't have it pulled up?
I had it pulled up, but then it went away. It went away. I got it. Okay, so this is the question I asked.
Yes, it
Forgot
is.
that I asked. Okay, so like in Lord Huron's work, the music itself is kind of like indicative of its own world, right? Like it's not a specific genre, it's kind of like an amalgam of genre. So in a way, it just world builds. So do you find this like genre breaking to be a direction other ARGs will tend to move in? And could it be like its own genre eventually? Kind of like the film score is understood to be its own kind of genre? Or yeah, like what are your thoughts on the way that ARG soundscapes could move in the future?
So I think for Lord Huron in particular, I don't think it's anything that's necessarily new, because this kind of thing has been done in the past, where a project, a music project, takes on sort of an unfictional edge to itself, where it will have multimedia delivery or immersion or anything like that. The thing that I like about Lord Huron is that I like the story mostly. I like the story. I assuredly love the music. I think shit. Damn it, there was another band that I'd listened to that had done like the same thing for a set of albums. That was like concept albums. The thing I think another thing is that Lord Huron specifically centers itself around this story. Like the band doesn't make music usually, or at least original music, that isn't centered around like the interconnecting universe. Other bands that have done like this concept album multimedia sort of thing just did like maybe one or two albums. I
Yeah.
feel terrible that I am forgetting the name of the one band, but it was like they had done a few albums where they were talking about like the family tree for a specific like family and their
Oh my god, I know
their-
exactly what you're talking about. It's the Radical Face series of 4 albums.
Yeah!
Extended family tree. I love that stuff. That
Yes,
thing fucking
yes.
slaps.
Radical Face. That's
Yeah.
the name of yes,
That's
absolutely.
just one
Yes.
guy. That's just one dude.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
insane.
Dude.
Hold on. Actually, I don't know when was that. When was those album originally released? Give me like 2 seconds.
Oh yeah, I remember this. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
There
so
are good songs in there too. They're not all bangers, but
Oh
there are
my
a couple
goodness.
that are just like absolutely fantastic.
Stop trying.
Boner
There
saying
was
Cocaine and Cambria, stop.
yeah. The first one that he had released, Family Tree the Roots, was released in 2011, which predates Lord Huron by like about a year or so.
Got a cube.
So it's like I was saying, it's not like it hasn't been done before, and I certainly wouldn't call it genre breaking. It's definitely unique when you consider it in regards to Unfiction, because we don't really have pieces that, I mean, even Lord Huron doesn't necessarily advertise itself in the Unfiction space. I wouldn't even argue that. I would go as far as to say that even like Lord Huron fans don't understand that it's really unfiction. And excuse me, I've tried to go out of my way to emphasize this. I'm definitely going to be doing it more in the next video that I do for that. Look out for that whenever it comes out. Sorry. But in Unfiction in general, that is assuredly different, way unique. Focusing on the music first rather than the actual story itself, or like the stuff that happens outside of the story, like the videos or whatever. It's way different. So yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious because I was reading. I went on a rabbit hole today on Lord Huron,
God help you.
and he was like, right, like his whole thing is about creating this kind of like discombobulating kind of sensation of like feeling kind of lost in the world. And then I mean, I was just really intrigued by, because he very much was like, I want to make ARGs, like that's what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so like, right, someone committed like that to doing something like that, will other people kind of follow suit? That's kind of where my question was coming from as well, just because, yeah, that was kind of interesting where he was like, well, I just kind of want to do this. And then this article that I read, he was just like, yeah, I made a treasure hunt for my nephew for when he turns 5. Like, what?
Yes. Yeah, you saw that article too. Yeah, dude. I love that shit. I love Ben Schneider so much. He is a genius.
And like,
That
he didn't have a
I
band. Like, he didn't, he like made the CD, he like made a CD and he sold it at like a market at
Yeah.
like some random like local art fair or whatever. And then he just took off, and then he was like asked to like go on tour, and then he's like, "Oh, I need a band now." And
Yeah,
just asked him
exactly.
and then asked him dudes from his hometown if they still play instruments. And they're like,
Yeah.
"Yeah." And then that's the band, and they toured for like years.
They're still
It's
touring
just,
right now.
and they're still touring, right?
Yeah,
It's just like
still same
wild to
group, yeah.
me.
I agree. It is pretty bananas. I also especially love the kind of like the origin story that he kind of set up for it. Like the whole reason that he went out for this art gig was that he followed a chick. He followed somebody that he really liked, and then that didn't end up working out. And he just sort of built a life from himself after that, which is if any of you know any of the individual stories in Lord Huron, you know that's extremely reminiscent of what goes on in the music and the story, which I find
Yeah,
hilarious.
he's
That he
emblematic of his own work. It's amazing.
quite so.
Yeah.
He is very emblematic of that. Like when you see him on stage and when you see him like talking, he's a very sort of relaxed, kind of really super duper down to earth kind of guy that has a very poetic way of describing the things that are going on around him, and he's somewhat verbose at times whenever he's trying to establish what he's trying to say. And I love, oh my god, I love Ben Schneider so much.
He's
Okay,
the
anyway.
medium. He's the
Yeah,
media.
yeah. And there's it's oh my god, this. Uh, sorry, I'm thinking
Simp,
about Ben
just
Schneider. I'm
simp in the
dude.
simp in the chat.
I'm just thinking about Ben Schneider right now, and dude, I'm tripping over myself. I got my fucking mouth agog like a little baby. I can't even think right now, dog. I'm just thinking about Ben Schneider. Can't get him out of my head.
I wanted to get this question on there because I saw your interaction in our like little production server where you're like, oh, that's a deep rabbit hole. What happens when you start going into the Lord Huron rabbit hole? I mean, I've seen your videos, but what happens like when you start diving into it and you're not producing content? Do you just go insane? Is that the vibe?
Yeah.
You
So
yell at work. Today I
what?
yelled at work. The record label's not even real. That's the first thing that you do going into that's the first step of the rabbit hole. You sit there and you say the record label's not even real.
So what ends up happening whenever you're not making content, this is like a whole different topic of conversation, but the disparity between Lord Huron fans and their opinion on what's going on in the story is wider than the Grand fucking Canyon. There are some people that will create their own narratives despite being given a narrative, despite being given a story. They will ignore all of the supplemental material and will take into account only the music and create a narrative from that standpoint. There was a guy that was a mod of the Lord Huron server that I'm in. Well, there is a guy still. And he just has like pages upon pages upon pages upon pages of dense lore for this one character, and he's connecting each of the songs with each other, excuse me, to create a story for this one guy and this idea that he has, which is like mind-boggling to me. And also, I kind of don't understand that, because you're given the information about what's going on beforehand. And I'm not one to discuss the wrong way to consume a story, but I definitely don't think that's the right way to consume a story, especially when you're given that information beforehand, and especially when that information is so fucking good. Like the V Noir supplemental material in particular is like so engaging to me. That's probably and that's partially why it's my favorite album they've ever done, is that it is just like just the idea of the story of this one guy who's going out into Los Angeles, a place that he's never been to, trying to find this girl that he really likes, and coming into contact with like the cosmos and this mind-bending drug and all this crazy shit that's going on around him. I think that stuff is super fascinating. And the other side of that is people like me who try to sit there and catalog everything and try to come up with an idea of what exactly is going on here with each of these characters. How do they all connect to each other? And trying to establish, one of the main things that I want to do for the next video is kind of try to establish like the themes that are going on here. Because if there's one thing that is connecting all of these stories, it is the themes that are being presented. And also the characters, knowing each other and talking with each other every so often. I'm trying to think if there's anything else to say with that. Oh, and then there's just people who don't know what the hell is going on at all. Like there are so many people on the Reddit that will come like onto the subreddit that will just be like, "Oh, I didn't know there was a story to this."
That's kind of an inherent risk with like ARGs as well as like Unfiction
True.
and stuff, especially with just like music that is put on YouTube. Like people be like, "Oh, this is good music," and "Oh, wow, there's a subreddit for people who like this music," and "Oh, there's like a whole thing. It's like
Yeah.
a whole thing." Like I would say, like the Styx album, Mr. Roboto. Everyone's like, "Oh my god, Mr. Roboto is such a good song." It's like there's a whole concept album before and after Mr.
Yeah.
Roboto, and also
I
Mr. Roboto does not make sense if you listen to it. If you have not listened to the rest of the song,
I
Yeah,
love
exactly,
a
right?
concept album. Ooh, I'm I'm a theater gay for concept albums.
Damn straight.
you
Real
should.
shit.
There's like a whole like I listened to a Blind Guardian, which is like Iron Maiden except with some more strings. Power metal. They did a whole album doing the Silmarillion. They just did a whole album based on the Silmarillion.
I mean, okay,
It's
so I know what I'm
fantastic.
doing tomorrow.
Author, man.
Jesus Christ.
I think it's
That's a
part
little,
of the Silmarillion, but it's real good.
that's a little scary, actually. I don't know how to feel about that.
I'm excited.
Here, I'll
Um,
post a link to it in our
Please,
Discord so you can
please.
find
please
it
and thank
later.
you. Yeah, there in people not knowing the story, I'm okay with that, because you know the music is supposed to be the thing that draws people in first and foremost. It doesn't the stuff that's going on with like the supplemental material is just like side enjoyment, which is in great contrast to what we're usually used to, where like the content itself is inherently connected to the story that's going on. Whereas with this, it's sort of like you don't have to know the story, and you don't have to be super invested in it to enjoy the content itself, the music.
Mhm.
So I think that's interesting.
Gone a long time enjoying Vida Noir without reading any of the supplemental material. I need to do it. I keep telling myself to do it, but I've just been sitting around and being like, man,
Gotta do
Laura, it's great when not everything is IAMs. This is amazing.
Dude, there's a 35-minute video that's on the Lord Huron channel
Mhm.
that's just about the Lord Huron, or sorry, that's just about V Noir and like setting up for the movie. By the way, there's a movie. I don't know if you
Oh
guys knew about
man, I
that.
didn't know about the
There's a
movie.
movie. It's not out yet. It's going to be coming out eventually sometime in the future whenever they get that shit figured out. But it teases the movie. It talks about the story. It's like oh my god, it's super engaging. There's also a limited series that they did on their website that is mostly new covers of the songs that they've already made, but also giving like more context to what's going on in Long Lost specifically, and talking about um, sort of like the main focal point of this album, which is a guy named Tubbs, and his relationship with all of the artists that are featured on the album, and his experience with them and how that has affected him and how he can move on from that. from those people not really being around anymore. God damn it, I love Lord Huron.
I love that.
Dude, it's
I hate that we're doing this. I don't want to do this anymore. Because now I'm just gonna like I'll like majority of the day at work. This is what I was just like looking
you're
into.
fucked. You're fucked. Dude,
I'm in it. I'm in it now.
You're in it. You're in it to win it, baby.
Yeah, we got a question from Chop Boomer Knuckles. What is the difference between a rock opera and a concept album?
That is a good question.
A concept album is a concept album is like, think of it like a concept album is like the animal kingdom, just like saying that like this is the animal kingdom, and then a rock opera is kind of like a sub part of the animal kingdom. The concept album is what you would call like the whole thing, and a rock opera is like the lower side of that, although a rock opera, well, no, by definition, it would have a story. So yeah, it's derivative of that, of the idea of concept.
Everyone listen to Phantom of the Opera.
Phantom of the Rock
No,
Opera.
actually,
Phantom of the
I haven't
Paradise.
watched
Sorry,
it.
Phantom of the Paradise.
Phantom of
Oh,
the Paradise.
Phantom-
Okay,
I was
there
gonna be
you
like
go.
Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
That's just a musical. That's
Yeah, yeah, Phantom of the Paradise. Yeah,
Somebody super like you. I don't know why that had such a gorilla grip on me in high school, but it did. Phantom of the Paradise. I don't know what I was going through in high school, but that's what I listened to, and that's a rock opera.
that's awesome.
So, jumping. So just so we're clear with the audience, I asked Authorman, what's the essential Authorman, and I was sent Auspicio Onum. I was sent Omenum. I can't remember exactly.
Omnium.
Omnium. There it is. I was sent the Lord Huron video. We were sent pictures of Gwen. I think I'm Scared as well, or maybe I tossed I'm Scared in there. And these are all episodes of Unfictional Soundscape, with the exception of the Lord Huron, which is on the Authorman YouTube channel. You can check out. But just so that's why we're hitting these specific things, is because these were the things that were passed to us as the essential Authorman. Just an incredible album cover, I think, right there. So this is from Morgan. I think Morgan is the originator of the next question.
Oh, let me
God damn it, guys.
find it. No. I had it up, but then I had to pull it
Guys.
down so I could see Twitch chat. You know, being a good Twitch moderator here.
Trom
you know.
Boomer Knuckles says the Aiden Elliott one is pretty essential IMO. So I
You
guess
keep
your
calling him
interview
Trom
is-
Boomer. It's
And it's not.
Tromboner.
Yeah, that's wrong.
It's
man.
Tromboner.
it's
It's not Trom
Tromboner.
Boomer. It's yeah.
That's fucked up,
I'm
man.
sorry, it's Trom
You and
Boner
names today.
Knuckles.
You and names today, man.
Knuckles.
I
What do we
agree
look
with that.
at?
Well, okay, to
Oh, that one, yeah.
to expand upon that a little bit, I do so many projects in a month, let alone a week, that just are like things that I'm proud of, that I don't really know how to define like what is the essential author, man, because all of it is kind of essential.
Mhm.
Everything that I'm working on, like one of the videos that I could have included was this for this channel that I work for, designing for, and I did a video on Spamton
Oh.
from Deltarune. Yeah, it was he does the scripts and the audio and stuff. I do the everything else. And I was um uh, I edited that video, and it was really, I think that's the best work that I've ever done, like up to this point, I would say, especially from a video editing perspective. I got my one friend CJ to take the videos that I had created digitally and then put them onto a VHS and then take them back and turn them into digital again, so they had that like VHS effect over them. And it was like a really convincing VHS effect and not like one that you just get from After Effects or whatever.
Mhm.
Uh, and I worked really hard on those videos that I had done for it, those little tidbits those little interjections that I had done for it. I really love that video, and I would consider that essential author, man, because that showcases like my editing abilities, that showcases my meme potential, my a special need to my love for the character and the game in general. Even though I'm not the main voice that's in the video itself, and it's Pierre mostly, I am still a large part of. I'm like half of the part of that, and I think that's essential. I think that's me that's out there, along with Pierre. But I don't know if that's like is that categorical to essential author man? Because that's not, because like I'm not the one who made the video. It was on a different channel that was for somebody else that I got paid for, and it's not like it's necessarily my entire baby. I just had a baby with this guy, and it's and it was a group effort.
Yeah, we take a
So
pretty liberal definition to authorship in this house, I think.
Okay.
But that's a Ludic Society thing. Like I have a very liberal definition of authorship, where if your hand touches the project, guess what? You're an author. Have fun. But like some people would take exception to that. So like
Okay.
it is a
Yeah.
good question, right? Like what if you say, oh, the essential X, what role does that person have to be in to address that? I mean, like I said, I would have been like, hell yeah, you edited this? Fuck yeah. But like, I don't know that every person in the audience would totally agree with that definition of authorship. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
We talked about this last in when we talked about Ben Drowned, right? Who's canon
Yeah.
and who's not canon.
Well, obviously, Devil May Cry man. What is his name?
Dante.
Dante. I was like, Dante sounds like such a weeb name. It's not Dante. No, it's totally
No, it's
Dante.
absolutely
Wait.
Dante, and he's absolutely a weeb.
He is
Absolutely,
a hardcore
100%.
weeb. It's
Dante
true.
is canon.
And
In Ben
Knuckles.
Drowned. And Knuckles. And the troll face.
and Knuckles and Steven.
Yeah. We can
Yeah.
get back to my question.
Yeah.
Dante's a
Okay,
weeb.
yeah, we'll get
it's
back
a
to
weeb
your
name.
question. Yeah.
Okay, Hearts Out. The reason why Dante's a weeb name is because one of my friends in Final Fantasy is named Dante, and he's one of the biggest weebs I know. So my brain immediately classifies Dante as weeb because of it. He is like, I will play samurai in Final Fantasy to have the cool sword. And he does that for ninja too. So
Oh,
okay, questions. Yeah, I don't know where we're going. We're just gonna continue onwards. So you're talking about in I'm Scared, and I might have lost context a little bit. You're talking about like the way that someone put artificial vibrato via software into like a piano line, or just like in general, like putting twang where it's not supposed to be, like vibrato. And do you think the affordances of like software that is available to people contribute to how Unfiction soundscapes are created and then like act in Unfiction? Because they kind of, yeah.
Well, if we didn't have that software, then Unfiction really wouldn't exist, at least in the form that it is now.
Yeah.
And any kind of software can be used to afford that that uh, gift that we have with the projects that we create. And I think that's why it's kind of important that you understand like your software before you go in and use it, before you start a project, just so that you know to do that kind of thing. You know, I harp on the twang that he had created for that because I found it to be like a particular note, because a piano really isn't supposed to do that. Pianos
No.
don't have vibrato.
Yeah.
They don't have a timbre where they go, or they don't have a flange is a better way to say that, right? And with the software that he had, he just went into FL Studio, and he knew FL Studio well enough to know, I want to get a specific effect, therefore I do it like this, and he was able to get the sound that he wanted, and that got across the point that he was trying to give, that something is wrong here. It's not
Yeah.
this isn't correct, but it is engaging, and it adds like a super unique sound to it.
Is
But there's
it
like,
kind of like a
yeah.
uncanny valley sort of effect where you're like, I
Yeah.
know this sound, but it's doing something weird?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is that it's like, it's uncanny. You're not used to a piano doing that, so it grabs you. And of course, other than being just like a unique effect, it is something that is like indicative of what's going on in the story here, that something isn't quite right. And I fucking love that.
Do you think in general, like the ability to have these like software effects, even if it's like auto-tune, like adjusting pitches and things where they're
Mhm.
not supposed to go, kind of contribute to the ability of making Unfiction soundscapes very like uniquely strange and specific to Unfiction, or just like kind of, yeah.
I think in general media, it allows us to do things that we were never allowed to do before. Right now, I'm taking a class called Audio Techniques, Audio Techniques 2 right now. And Audio Techniques 1, the thing that the main part of it was that we were in 1967. And in 1967, we didn't have Pro Tools, and we didn't have plugins, and we didn't have any kind of software. We had a tape machine, we had a board, and we had outboard gear, and you deal with that and you go from there. And we worked with analog tape. We worked with the 4-tracker, specifically an MX 5050, and some outboard gear, compressors, limiters, reverb. An XPX 990 was one of them. The board that we were working with was an SSL AWS 948, which is a couple, like, I don't know, like thousands upon thousands of dollars piece of equipment. And it's really super duper expensive, but oh my God, it has every single thing that you would ever do with like a board in like the analog world that you're ever going to see. Any sound studio worth its salt is going to have that, and everything that you're ever going to see in a sound studio is going to be on that board. And the stuff, all of this is to say that, like, yeah, all that stuff is cool, but like the stuff that we're able to do now with the software that we're afforded now is like lowered the skill ceiling or the skill floor by like a lot. Like before, if you wanted to be a sound engineer, a competent sound engineer, a sound engineer who could even like do anything at all, you had to know, okay, how does tape work? How does a compressor work? How does like how do I lower the Q on this equalizer here? What is Q on an equalizer? What are the 8 fundamentals of sound, for Christ's sake, right? But like with the software that we're given now, you don't necessarily have to know that information if you want to do the project that you want to do. All you need to do is know your software, and that's really it. If you want to be competent and you want to be fully assured of what you're going to be doing, before you had to know like like a billion different things. You had to know like how to solder shit to even begin to understand like you had to understand electricity. You have to understand like all these different things, and you, not to say that information is obsolete, because it sure as fuck is not. It's really, really, really important if you want to be like a real sound engineer. But if you're just trying to tell your story, then you don't need to know that right now. All you need to know is what you have, the tools that you have in front of you, and then that's it. So I think it's absolutely contributed in that people can actually do it.
Yeah.
And the people can actually do the thing that they want to do
Yeah.
way easier than they ever could have before.
Definitely. It kind of goes back to the homegrown aspect of these people are just kind of
Totally.
one guy in their office trying to do something, or multiple people. So yeah,
you can fuck around too without about worrying about like a short circuit happening halfway down your rig and blowing out some $1,000 piece of equipment.
The expensive tape too.
Yeah.
Oh
my
yeah.
God. Oh my God. Tape is so fucking expensive.
I posted a video by Rob Scallon who went and recreated like 10 effects that are very common modern day in analog, how they did it when it was just tape. So it's an interesting video.
Oh, I'm taking that. Thank you.
Also, if anyone,
I'm gonna watch every link that's in this tomorrow.
I highly recommend Rob Scallon. He's a great dude. He's also from Chicago, so Midwest pride.
Fuck yeah.
So many of us. Well, I'm not from the Midwest at all. I'm from Virginia. I'm just masquerading.
You're here now, so
I apparently sound like I'm from Baltimore. So thanks, Stuart, for telling me that one.
I have never met anyone from Baltimore.
You've met Stuart.
Is Stuart from Baltimore?
Yeah, from Baltimore.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Tubular bells is cool. Anyway.
And I wonder, I was fucking around with Premiere a couple of years ago, making a project for a conference, and I happened to rediscover how to do a certain effect from Tribe 12, who the creator of which I will not mention in this stream because he's a fuckhead. But like, you know the one where everything grays out and you just go to black and white, and it's like hyper contour. Yeah, just like if I was working in like an editing booth, I would never have fucking played around and found that. Are you kidding me? But because the knobs are right there, you just stack effects until the computer just like fucks up, and you're like, oh hey, I kind of
Yeah.
like how that fucked up.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's funny. Like in a lot of other mediums, especially in computing, there's like a lot of and cinema. There's a lot of talk about democratization in that regard. Like the digital brings the democratization of X, and whether that's the right verb to describe it or adjective to describe it is we're neither here nor there. But the point is, it is interesting how when the limitations of having to have all the specialized knowledge are gone, suddenly now the specialized knowledge you need seems to fundamentally change.
Yes,
It does. I
absolutely.
mean, I don't know if democratization, but for sure, has been recently in our ethnography of institutions class. We're talking about like decolonializing things, right?
Ah,
Mhm.
yes.
That's very good at doing that,
Mm-hmm.
like decolonializing all these industries, right? Like music and
Yeah.
film, which
Yeah.
are very white, very
Mm-hmm.
white industries.
Yeah.
It
So
kind of it. We
Sadly.
we are some people to talk about this,
Well, yeah.
unfortunately.
I'm fucking pasty white. I can't. But man, all right, I'm gonna be totally honest with you. The best pieces in like film and TV and just in general that I've listened to involve music that is not particular or instruments that are not particularly Western. You can have whatever fucking opinion you want on this game that you want, and that's fine. I don't care. But you cannot deny that the music in Genshin Impact specifically
Oh yeah,
is legendary,
yeah.
dude. Oh my god. It's the same studio that worked on the God of War soundtrack, God of War 2018. It's a composer who specifically has foots both in the Eastern and the Western world, and he uses like all these different types of instruments, like a shamisen and a shakuhachi and an ersu or however you pronounce that, like all these different instruments that, along with like a violin, a cello, a trumpet, like all of these instruments that coming together to create a sound that's like mind-blowingly incredible. It shocks me that people don't do it more often. And I understand that it takes like an amount of understanding like Eastern ideals before you can do that. But like it is so worth it to get a sound that is incredibly unique. Or even like something like Black Panther. I think it was Ludwig Gorsel who had done or I don't remember how to pronounce his name, but he had done the composition for that movie, and he very specifically talked with African composers to really bring out the sound that he wanted for Wakanda. And he
Mhm.
combines that with Western sort of music, but he focuses on the music from Africa and the African ideas that he had gotten. And I think that is so powerful and takes it so much farther. I really wouldn't give a rat's ass about that movie. Well, no, I would give a rat's ass about that movie because of the thesis statement, but and also because it's like like the first ever mainly black superhero movie, and I can't believe how fucking long that took, but whatever, that's not the point. The point is that the composition for that movie is incredible, and one of the reasons why it's incredible, the main reason why it's incredible, is because they stepped outside of the Western ideals that we have established up to this point and brought in something new and impactful, really genuinely impactful. And it pisses me off that people don't do that more often.
yeah,
Genshin.
I love like King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard is very good at bringing Ethiopian sound into like psychedelic rock, and it's just like great. And like I love,
Hmm.
right, because and that's kind of has to do with like the dia diegetic, right, sound. Like we're so used to our own kind of soundscapes having these very traditional kinds of sounds, and then like we kind of keep recycling that because that's all we know, and then it doesn't add to the overall allure of something, because you're like, oh, I kind of already heard this. Yeah, another fifth, another like third,
Mhm.
like, right, like another major, right, like it's like, yeah, this isn't exciting. But then when people
Yeah.
really start to bring all these other things in, and that's why I kind of was asking earlier, kind of bringing it back to that question of like, do we see people caring about this enough that it really just kind of pushes a new kind of genre like hyperpop did, right? Like where you had people like
Yeah.
Sophie making, right, these really crunchy, plasticky, rubbery synthesized sounds. Is this something that Unfiction can really capitalize on?
Totally.
for bringing about this uncanny valley, for
Yeah, man.
really kind of not bridging, but delineating the border of the narrative.
Fuck yes. Love that you used hyperpop as an example. I love hyperpop. Great example. It's
It's only
perfect.
like 12 years old now, right? Like it's still very
It's
young.
yeah, it's pretty young. But yes, I agree with you 100% that it does become the cultural zeitgeist for music does become a little samey. And it isn't to say that you can't make new music with the things that we already have, like Kanye West with Donda. You know, he's he's using stuff that we've already used before, but he was still able to make music that was impactful and meaningful, and it's mostly because of the meaning behind the album itself and the thesis statement and etc. Um, you
Jesus was his
can
best album.
what was it?
I said Jesus was his best album.
I haven't listened to Yeezus. All I know is that I love Donda. Sorry. Anyway, uh, the but yeah, you can make engaging music with the stuff that we've had before, but I think if there's one thing that I could ask people to do more often is to expand your horizons to other types of instruments that exist in the world and not just the shit that we already know here, trumpets, drum kits, guitars. What about a shamisen? Let's think about like a shakuhachi, right? Like that could be interesting if you incorporate that. You could do some weird shit with a shakuhachi.
So, there's a German genre called medieval rock, and they have bagpipes in their metal. It's fantastic.
That's fucking baller, man. That's awesome.
And accordions and some pan flutes. It's
Yeah.
medieval rock. It's
So wait, is
During
it
the
polka
break,
rock?
no, it's called Mittelalter
Okay, so
rock,
it's
which is
nothing to do with polka. Good.
oh,
well, I mean, it's German, so there's probably
Oh
some
no, don't no.
polka influences because it's German, but
I'm so sorry. I'm gonna do two really quick tangents.
Please.
The
tangent
Andean,
one.
the tangent one is South American electronic music really tend to use the pan flute instead of the synthesizer like we do here.
Okay.
So that's really cool. And then they use a lot of like they're very lyrically forward in their electronic music down there. Secondly, speaking of polka, there is a genre in Mexican music, norteño music, which has a Czech influence, and that's why that specific genre of Mexican music sounds like polka because it literally is polka influenced, which is
That's great.
wild to me. Because like North Mexico, white polka, okay,
That's
done
fucking
tangent.
awesome.
I just that's my favorite fact to know because it's wild.
That's awesome.
So I want to ask. So I have one more like question, and then I have like one thing I want to leave us on before we do your promos.
Cool.
The last question I have to ask is: so of the aesthetics of sound that do currently exist in Unfiction that are solidified. One of the things that really comes up, and this is in the especially onum onia. I have done Latin for 6 years and I can't fucking pronounce it. It's wild. It's the fucking dyslexia, ain't it? But it, that soundscape is more remarkably similar to a lot of other soundscapes that exist in Unfiction. And so you get this like an industrial sound that is in one in every 3 series. And so I just have to ask, like, when you are running against that, listening to that soundscape over and over and over again, or industrial plus woods, how do you differentiate between the nuances of different industrial sounds?
It depends on the series. I think what's going on in that series is super important for that. So, for example, with Marble Hornets, it's a story about people trying to deal with the concept of being fucked over by somebody that they cared about and trying to reconcile with that to some extent, to some degree, whether it's revenge, whether it's trying to move on, whether it's whatever, it doesn't matter. And this entity, this physical embodiment of this hate that's following them around and trying to it and mental illness, affecting that as well, being a large part of that. I think when industrial sounds are used in that context in particular, I think there's a specific type that's being used in that moment and how it applies to the character specifically. Like I had mentioned before with To the Ark, those wood sounds that we would really not mean anything or mean as much in like another context. It sounds pretty, sounds nice, it's calming, it's there's not much going on with it. If it was used anywhere else, then it wouldn't mean much. But because of where it's used, because of what's going on in that moment, it's like magnified by hundreds of times. In contrast to Spicio Omnium, it's using these industrial sounds um, to scare the shit out of you and to emphasize the insanity of this conductor that you're being forced to um, be at the whims of. And if that was used in Marble Hornets, then I don't know what I would do with that.
Yeah.
I think it would. I don't know what they would do with that. Like, is that just? I mean, that would just be To the Ark who's like harassing Alex again, which is fine. But what scares me about Aspicio Omnium is that I don't know who Pythier is. I have no idea who this guy is. I don't know if he's like a monster. I don't know if he's like somebody that's just insane. I don't know if he's like a spirit or whatever. I don't know what the hell's going on with him, but he's clearly unhinged, and he has this ability to make, or she or whatever, they have this ability to make this music that is establishing this tone of going through each and every individual apartment where there is very clearly something going on here that is not right, that is inherently scary and uncanny. And you can't do anything with this. You can't run, you can't go anywhere. You're having to sit here and watch as he goes slowly, carefully, maniacally through each individual part of this apartment to deliver some sort of unsettling information to you. So I think this goes into another idea that I was going to talk about before, and something that I'm going to talk about in the next episode of Unfictional Soundscape, is you can do a lot with music that is not your own. You can do a lot with sound effects that are not your own, as long as you do something new with it, or something that is important to the story with it, and not just have it in there because, I don't know, it's cool.
This is where we plug freesound.org, like,
which
is the greatest repository for
Hey,
other
man.
people's audio of all time ever.
If they start answering my emails, then yes, I'm happy to plug them. But you can do a lot with unoriginal sound. And by contrast, you can do a lot with sound still that has been sort of done before. With this industrial sort of nature-based sound, you can do things with it that haven't been done and that are still impactful, regardless of you hearing the same sound over and over and over again.
There's a really interesting moment. Do you happen to have the Blu-ray with the bonus features from Marble Hornets?
No, I do not. I'm sad I don't have that.
I have the signed Blu-ray from before Thack broke up with all three of them. Actually, it was pretty great. Yeah, I know.
That's awesome, dude.
But I've
Like,
run that
this is
disc
my opportunity to flex
so many damn times. But that's not why I'm bringing it up. I'm bringing it up because there's in the special features, there's this bit of video footage from them in their apartment trying to get the sound of cracking a skull open by beating it's not a coconut, it was a cantaloupe with a metal bat, which will do the job.
That's awesome.
But they didn't have any way to like anchor it, so they set it in their sink and smacked it, and the bat missed and hit the sink. And they made this an alternate cut of the footage where I think it's Tim comes up and takes a big swing with the fucking sink clank, and it is the funniest shit. I mean,
oh my god, I need that immediately. Please send that to me.
But
That's awesome.
It drives home the point that, like, yeah, your industrial sound, that sink clank might be at home, and especially Omnium, but it's not in a Marble Hornets. It sounds like shit.
Totally.
There's nuance there. I think the thing is that soundscapes are historically, from a rhetoric and composition standpoint, the thing that are the hardest to get new students to engage with. And I think that
Yeah.
tracks outside of the academy. I think like people have a really hard time talking about sound, sadly.
Well, it's such a universal thing for humans. It's one of our core. It's like you see things and you're like, hey, I am seeing something. You when you taste things, you're like, I am tasting something, but you don't really have control over what you're hearing.
Mhm.
And so your brain can filter out things. It can just take in things. We don't actually know why the cocktail party effect works. And they're like, well, you hear everything, but how do you perceive everything? And like hearing is such a it's always on. Like
Mhm.
you're only seeing, but you can blink and close your eyes and you don't have to see anything. But it's such a taken for granted sense, I think, which is a shame because people hurt their hearing all the time and then they
Yeah.
can't hear very well.
As like a last send-off question, I do just want to ask you, so what
Please.
advice do you have for people who are making ARGs or Unfiction now and are like, shit, what do I do for my sound design?
I'm glad you asked. So one of the things I'm going to be talking about this more in the next episode, but I think one of the main things that I can recommend is that you do your own sound design. And when I say that, I mean you get a microphone and you get a DAC or you get a handheld Zoom recorder and you go out and you record the sound that you want to get, whether that be your forest or that be you doing Foley work. It doesn't matter. If you can go out and do that, then that sound is not only going to have more of a personal connection to the story itself because it is unique, but it is also going to have a more personal connection to you. And it's going to be straight from the source. There's no additives that have been given to this sound at all. It's exactly what it sounds like. And from that, you can take it and mold it into whatever you want it to be. So if you're having problems with sound design, I would ask that you try to imagine what you think something that you're trying to apply to would sound like. And if you're still having trouble with that, there are so many different YouTube videos that talk about um, the tricks and tips that people have when it comes to sound design. This is an art that has existed for like 100 years at this point. You know, there's so many different sources that you could pull from that could help you to really like understand exactly what you're trying to go for. And then I would also recommend looking into soundscapes and nature soundscapes and city soundscapes and all of the different places that you can go to and the sounds that you can hear in those places. I think you might find some unintentional inspiration from those places. Or play a video game that you feel like is close to what close to the feeling that you're trying to get. Um, Kay talked a lot about, well, not a lot, but she had talked about playing Soma and how Soma had really inspired like some of the sounds that she had played or some of the sounds that she had in the series. And I think that's a perfect example of that. She created a totally original sound from basically nothing because she was inspired by a game that she had played. And you have that ability too. Go enjoy your favorite pieces of media, take notes on them, sit there and analyze them to death and try to understand, okay, so if there's a sound that really hits you, that really feels like this is a sound that I want to emulate, how did they get that sound? What had inspired that sound? What was the process for making it? How easy is that process to replicate? Is there a way to do that in a homegrown sense? If you're not having a studio work behind you on this project, I think kind of interrogating yourself for the project that you're trying to go for goes a long way in helping you plan out everything.
Yeah, what is it? There's a my theater professor in undergrad was super into performance history. It's like to get a sound of thunder on an old 16th, 14th century stage, they'd roll a cannonball down a wooden trough. So like Foley's been around for fucking centuries. It's crazy the shit that you can do. Yeah, I wanted so you guys said you had a couple projects that you were on the way, or they're either on the way or they're already out. I'm not exactly sure. I'm gonna switch to the promo slide for the two images you gave us, and you can kind of talk about those for a sec.
Fantastic.
While you get that up, I have to say I noticed in one of your podcasts you had Halo Reach
Absolutely
playing, and I was like, hey, I know that because I own all of the soundtracks from 1 through Reach. Once Salvatore and Martin O'Donnell weren't working on it because they went to they stayed with Bungie for Destiny. I was like, I don't need a Halo.
No, wait,
Martin Salvatore are
no. Listen to me. You actually need to you need to fix that.
You need to
the
listen to Halo
best
4 and things?
Yes, Halo
See.
4, Halo Infinite, Halo 5, you need to fix that right away. I'm sorry to put off the promos, guys, but this is really fucking important to me. I would not give nearly as much of a shit about Halo if 343 didn't have the reins of it right now. I wouldn't give nearly as much of a shit if I did if Halo 4 didn't exist. You need to listen to me. This is life-changing information, okay? If you have not played Halo 4, 5, and Infinite, you need to do that ASA fucking P. That's the first thing. The second thing is that the Halo 4 soundtrack has some of the best pieces that the series has ever seen. By contrast, Halo Infinite also has some of the best pieces that the series has ever seen, and Halo 5's music is as good, if not better, than both of those.
I will stay skeptical because I
Please.
I don't think for me
Please.
there's no Halo after Halo Reach. That's what because I played like 10 minutes of Halo 4 and I got to a kick time event. I went, oh, I'm
Okay.
done.
Put
But anyway,
your
promos.
try. Okay. I'll talk about this later. I'll talk about this. All right.
We're
I'll talk
in
about
the
this.
follow-up episode where we just talk Halo for 2 hours.
Please. Oh my God. Please do
That's
it.
part of the
please.
that's Patreon content.
Put it in the cap.
I would-
It'll
We'll put it in
I would-
Nebula.
Okay,
We'll put it on
in the-
Nebula. They have to go watch it on Nebula. Get a curiosity thing.
Oh. All right, I'm gonna flip this to promo.
All right. Coolio.
So just pick up. I know you know the two projects you've got better than I do, but you've got
Yeah.
I don't know, and then the camera glitches episode.
Yeah. So the camera glitches episode is about what it says it's about. It's about camera glitches in Unfiction. It's a trope that's kind of existed for God Almighty as long as it's existed, especially with like the found footage element. And we often talk about like the video portion of that, which is fair. I mean, this is video, but there is an art and there is a way to kind of talk about the sound design portion of everything and the music portion of that. And I think that's going to be a really important episode to delve into that specific topic. I don't know is a music video that I'm working on with a colleague of mine in college. Her name is Brianna, and she is wonderful. I've worked very hard on the music video, and I filmed it, and I edited it, and I directed it, and I tech directed it, and I took photos for it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm very proud of the product. We're still working on it. I don't know when it's going to be out, nor do I know when the camera glitches video is going to be out. I don't know is probably going to come out sooner. Whenever it comes out, I'll be sure to promo it on my social media accounts. And camera glitches, I know for a fact, is going to come out as soon as I get finished with a demo for the new Unfictional Soundscape theme that a friend and I have been working on. His name is Tyler Herholt. I will put that into the section here. Hold on, let me just type that out.
How many times can we link Authorman in the chat? Here, I will link them also.
So Tyler Herholt
So
is a
many
colleague
times.
of mine, and he is a gifted composer, genuinely really gifted. The guy is a genius. He does not get enough work. If you need somebody to compose something for you fairly quickly, or if you just want assistance with something, or you want to contact him, then you can contact me and I will give you his email. And you can start talking with him and he'll give you rates and all that stuff that's important, or the paid stuff that's important. But he is incredible. Please don't sleep on his work. He will seriously elevate your project to heights that you probably never even thought of.
Maybe even levitate it.
Yeah, levitate it. That too.
Sorry.
Good callback. Seth Meyers will be proud. Great callback.
As for other projects that I'm working on, a lot of people have been asking me about the follow-up to the Lord Huron series. So I'm working hard on that. I'm also working with Tyler on the cover that's going to happen before that. When I'm comfortable with saying it, the cover is going to be of 20 long years. We have been working with a lot of our colleagues at our college to get that song done. We're working in the studio in state-of-the-art technology. It's state-of-the-art fucking everything that you can imagine. And we're working really hard on it. I have a demo that I can send. I think if you guys wanted to play that at the end.
Yeah, sure. Well,
yeah,
actually, I don't know if we'll have an end bumper, but I can play it before we raid if you want.
Totally.
Okay.
So it's we're working hard on that. We're getting some things figured out. Both he and I are busy. Which, by the way, if you've been wondering why content has been somewhat slow on my end, it's because it's my last semester of college. And
Same.
yeah, I know. Yeah, fucking
Same-ish.
awesome, isn't it? I'm very excited for it to end, but god damn it, there's a lot that's going on, and I don't have a lot of time to do the personal stuff that I want to do. Not to say that I'm not enjoying the things that I'm doing right now. I love my work, but it is time consuming. So I'm having to adjust a lot of the time to get things done, and I don't think I'll be able to get a new video out probably until I graduate. Which I'm sorry, it's 2 months away. I hope you can wait that long. If you can, I apologize. Excuse me. Anyway,
I can't wait now. Joking.
yeah, well,
Good.
it's
Give us your free content, dang it.
Yeah, next time
I-
I'm also free, so it'll be good.
it's coming out. I'm rest assured I am working on things behind the scenes. I have plenty of projects that I would like to do before the year ends out. And whenever they happen, you guys will be the first to hear about it. I promise.
Oh, I'm fucking excited for
Oh.
everything you make. Oh, Morgan's got a final
So-
question. Okay.
Please.
What?
You said
I was like, so hit that subscribe button and click
Oh,
the
that's not a
bell for
question.
notifications
You got me
and
all
like the
excited.
video for more things like this. That's all I got.
This is our YouTube specialist.
So we're you know,
I may or may not use a quote from this in the thesis because I thought it was a great quote.
a cited scholar, the author man. So no, seriously, thank you so much for doing this. We'll play the demo on the way out.
Thank you.
And like I just this has been a great conversation. I'm glad we could have you on. I'm a huge fan of your work outside of this. And
Oh, jeez.
when you said in chat randomly, yo, I could do this. I think a while ago I was like, oh my god, Authorman's gonna come on my tiny ass stream.
Oh, come on.
And we eventually worked it out, which is great. I'm glad. And you brought Jeffrey
I'm too.
Koval to my tiny ass stream.
I wasn't actually expecting Jeff to show up. Thank you for showing up, Jeff. I appreciate it.
I can't believe you pinged everyone in this room.
We're for context,
You asked for chaos. Deliver.
Chaos came,
We're-
yeah.
we're
Wait,
in a
we have to
we're
fight
in a
chaos.
we're in an a server that's specifically centered around Unfiction that has kind of a small population. And I was Ren was advertising the project, and they were like, "Oh well, I don't want to ping everybody. Well, fine, I'll do it." I wasn't expecting Jeff to respond. I wasn't expecting anybody to respond. And then my friend CJ, he started fucking posting memes as reactions underneath. Oh my god. This is a funny. Oh my god, it's hilarious.
Oh.
Anyway, all right, I'm done with that.
All right, we're gonna play the thing on the way out. So the audience knows, Sophista is live right now, and Sophista is like one of the best academic streamers who exists in the world. Period. You may know her as Not Your Mama's Gamer if you happen to have heard that before. She's great. So we're gonna raid her. I'm gonna play the track and just mute the Discord call that I'm in with these guys. And then after the track plays out, we're gonna jump over to Sophista. Thank you so much for coming on. I'll debrief with you all after we're done with the outro.
Fantastic.
Thanks,
All right.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank
so
you for
much.
coming by, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you. I've a tale or two to tell you, but the booze just makes me slow. Oh, and I could rack my brain remembering, but I guess maybe I'll just go. There's a method to my madness. There's a secret to this town. How, and there's a reason why I'm still I can't think of it right now. I made a promise when I left for the coast 20 long years ago. I made a life out of chasing a ghost. 20 years takes its toll. Oh, I got along for a while, I guess, but it took everything I had. I gotta find a way out of this mess I'm in. Trouble and it sure looks bad. Yeah. There's a thought or two I'd share with you, but the dope tends to cloud my mind. How and I destroyed my health searching for myself, but there ain't nothing there to find. There's a debt or two I owe you, but the gambling left me poor. Oh, and I put up my name in the sacred game and forgot what I was playing for. I made a promise when I left for the coast 20 long years ago. I made a life out of chasing a ghost. 20 years takes its toll. Oh, I got along for a while, I guess, but it took everything I had. I gotta find a way out of this mess I'm in. Trouble and it sure looks bad. Yeah.
I goofed right at the end. I goofed and clicked on something and it closed. Oh no, it was really fucking rad though.
Oh well, people are gonna have to wait till the whole thing comes out.